most of us, we are knowledge workers. If you use your brain to think, to make decisions, to just be creative, you are a knowledge worker. Are you working with your brain? Are you upgrading your engine? Are you fueling it, and are you training it?
As a component of readiness, knowledge is something that we are not only investing in, but that we can over-invest, overload ourselves with. What does knowledge look like, and how are you approaching this whole concept of knowledge? Hello there, it's me, Steve Meller, and welcome in to Growth Ready, the podcast that allows high performers to reveal the reality behind what it means to ready yourself for growth, the personal and professional challenges along the growth journey, while also allowing the high-performance executive coach in me to satisfy his curiosity toward what drives optimal performance. Today we welcome fellow coach Clint Rahe to the show to discuss the idea that activity does not produce results.
We take holiday, we get sick. That's called the letdown effect. Your immune system is suppressing everything because we're working to the end. Your body is just suppressing everything.
Clint presents the argument to view growth as a seasonal pursuit. Seasons that have their peak times, sustained times, and also the times where you're away entirely. Keeping in mind that any off-season is a time to ready ourselves to do it all again. Hey guys, as we get started here with the episode, I want to just take 1 minute of your time to make a request for you to subscribe and rate the show. For our show to be easily discovered by other potential listeners, we need our current listeners, that's you, to take the time to not only subscribe, but to also rate the show. Whether you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, whatever platform of choice, there are typically ways to be rating the show. So go ahead and click something like that 5th star and be sure to take that additional time to leave a comment or two about why it is you enjoy listening to the Growth Ready podcast. Your efforts on this will allow our show to be more discoverable, which means we're going to find more listeners and continue to have that significant impact on the community of human performance and personal development that I know you are all benefiting from by being listeners to this show. Please go ahead, take the time, subscribe, rate the show today. Hey, and while you're at it, why don't you share it with a few people as well? I appreciate you guys. Let's get to the interview. Hello there, and welcome back into the most recent installment of Growth Ready. We are speaking across hemispheres maybe today. I don't know. Geography was not my strongest suit. I think we are. But, the fact of the matter is I'm talking to someone that I actually got the pleasure to know through someone that's also been on the show many moons ago, probably a few hundred episodes ago now. But I'm delighted to welcome in Clint Rahe to the show today to talk about conceptually some ideas that I know everyone listening is going to really appreciate. But Clint, we cannot go any further without me asking you the question that I ask every single other person that joins us on the show. And Clint, what does it mean to you to be growth ready?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Look, to be growth ready, for me, it really comes down to one simple realization, is that most of us, all of your listeners, everyone that works in an office, we are knowledge workers. And you know, if you use your brain to think, to make decisions, to delegate, to just be creative, then that's it. You are a knowledge worker, and we need to start working with that engine. I think when people try and grow, they're using an outdated system, and when we try to learn and we try to grow and assimilate more knowledge, our systems are overloaded. So our brains haven't got the capacity to actually learn because we are overloaded. So for me, it's around, are you working with your brain? Are you upgrading your engine? Are you fueling it? And are you training it like an athlete trains their body for peak performance?
All right. So we're looking at knowledge as a component of growth, as a component of readiness. And we're trying to get folks to understand this idea that knowledge is something that we are not only investing in, but that we can almost over-invest. We can overload ourselves with, much like that of an engine. So an engine needs to be fueled, but it can be fueled to capacity. So let's start there. Let's start with this entire concept that you're throwing at us here, Clint, with this idea of just knowledge. So what does knowledge look like, and how are you approaching this whole concept of knowledge?
Yeah, so for me, it is about your brain. So your knowledge is your brain. So how are we using our brain day in, day out to sustain performance? And if you think about the current workplace at the moment, we are on back-to-back meetings. We don't have any rest or recovery scheduled in. We're trying to cram then training on top of everything that we're doing, and our brains are at capacity. And when your brain's at capacity, it's leading to burnout, it's leading to stress, poor habits, poor choices, because we just haven't got the willpower or the brain power to say no, because our brains are trying to conserve energy, right?
Sustaining performance. Talk to us a little bit about that, and why you're approaching things from the need to sustain performance as opposed to maybe achieve performance.
Yeah, I think with that, I am, as an executive coach like you, I'm seeing a lot of my clients that a lot of them come into me saying, I'm burnt out. I'm absolutely exhausted. And these are the people, they're in their 50s, late 40s, they're C-suite. That's when you should be at your peak performance. Your ability to make the best quality decisions at the right time, and they're burnt out. They've got no energy. A lot of them have got actually autoimmune conditions, cardiovascular disease, which is all of that has been brought on from stress. So when we should be at our peak, we're not at our peak, and we're just grinding through and not achieving what we set out to achieve, because now it's the norm. Back-to-back meetings is the norm. That's what COVID has given us. That's what Teams and Zoom has given us, is the ability to be on all the time. And our brains don't work like that. So for me, it is all around how can we now think about our engine and train it effectively so we are peaking at the right time, and not peaking for 30, 45 years of your career, because it's not sustainable.
Yeah, I love how you put that. The idea, like peaking for 30 to 45 years. When you say it like that, you just immediately go, well, that literally doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense. And yet, and to your point, we've been completely programmed to assume that for that duration of your career, you are supposed to be peak. You are supposed to be at your best. And no one fought it. No one's fought it for so long. So we've known that. And I would argue we still know that. And while we had this sort of honeymoon period, dare I say it, coming out of COVID, where we really became aware of this and we took ownership for this, we maybe even practiced this, I can't help but feel as though we're slowly falling back into the same patterns. And that for me is why I was so excited to have you on, obviously. But at the same time, when I think about peak performance, this show is driving people to care about that per se. Yeah. So if you're talking to someone right now that's saying, well, Clint, I didn't understand that you're telling me for me to have peak performance, I almost need to choose times and identify ways to execute that, and then maybe come away from that. So where I'm going with this, mate, is I want to just understand, where do you start with someone to sort of almost rewire them to stop looking at peak performance as this constant and looking at it more as moments, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. If you think about growth ready, we're always trying to achieve peak performance. So growth ready for me then is this training. It's the training to be on peak. If you think about the Winter Olympics at the moment, I've been lucky to train ski racers, and we're not on peak performance in mid-year because there's no snow, or we're on artificial snow. Here is the peak. And it'll be the same with your background with swimming and the Olympics. We've got peak moment for 4 years, and then every 2 years we have the world champs, and every year we've got nationals and things. So we are peaking at those times. When I then take this concept and bring it into knowledge work, I call them cognitive athletes, right? We're using our brain. Now what we need to do is we need to look at your career. And we can take a macro view of it and say, okay, you are here, you're 20, and you're going to retire when you're 65, although by the time 65 comes, it's probably be 70 and 75. Where in this career do you need to be on your peak moments, and where can we then train? And then we can then bring that, so that's career coaching, and then we can bring that back in terms of your role and the current job that you're in. And this is what I do with my clients. I say, hey, let's look at your calendar. And I guarantee you, people now, they look at their calendar and it is chaos, right? You got back-to-back meetings, probably double and triple booking. There's no start time. There's no finish time. Down under here in Australia, we are we're people pleasers more often than not, because we are working for global organizations in the US, in Europe. So our time differences never align. So we are always working against our rhythms of that business rhythm. So I've got a couple of clients who, they start their day at like 7:30 in the morning, and then they're working the Australian work day, finish at 6, go home for an hour. Then they're on Zoom or Teams meetings at 9, 10, 11 o'clock. In the US, then it'd be 2, 3 in the morning. And then they're expected to start work again at 7. And I'm looking at that and I'm going, is that sustainable? You're already, suffering from burnout. You already got those signs. Are you willing to do that for the next 35 years?
Yeah.
And, the answer is no. And the thing is, going to your point, is we know this. So I'm bringing this information. I'm saying, I'm challenging people to go, we need to rethink the way that we currently do our work, because it is just not sustainable.
Yeah. And there's so much, I run towards these kind of conversations with clients and folks that I meet in the corporate space when they push back and they say, "This is how it has to be, Steve. It's how it has to be." And I'm just like, you've made that decision, and that's a belief. There is no rule book that states that is how it has to be. That is a story you tell, and if anything, it allows you to find greater comfort in explaining to either yourself, those closest to you, your team, your organization, that this is how I should operate. This is how we should operate. Typically, it's a story that's making everything else convenient for you across your life. So if we know, here we are, you and I, in positions that we're in, working with folks the way we do, both with backgrounds in what we would consider peak performance, the sports world, etc. Like, people can seem to associate with that a little easier. Yeah. So we know that peak performance matters and that it is strategic and that we can actually plan it out. So help us now, Clint, understand as to how we start looking at things through this lens of sustaining performance as opposed to peak performance. So you've given us that idea now of, hey, look across the career. Hey, look across the year. However you want to do it. Identify where you want to peak. Now let's look the other way. How do we ensure we're sustaining ourselves in a way to set ourselves up for those moments where we may need to peak? Yeah,
absolutely. It comes down to cognitive periodization. When we are athletes, or when we've been working with athletes, we have a periodization schedule in which your physical training load is spread out over your season. And this is the difference when it comes to sport and business. Sport, you have a season, whether it is soccer, whether it is athletics, rugby, NFL, it's just finished. Where is this season in business? There is no season in business. We need to then start sowing the seed and looking at this with our clients and with everyone out there, is to go, let's work in a 12-month block. And now let's apply the lens of cognitive periodization. So with cognitive periodization, it is spreading the cognitive load, which is your thinking, your recovery, your decision-making, being creative, over the whole year. And no matter what industry that you're in, there are natural peaks and troughs within every industry. I always get a bit of pushback to say, no, we are on all the time. You mentioned it. That is a lot of baloney. I'm telling you now, it's just what we've been conditioned to. And as coaches, I can go into an organization, I can really challenge people on this. And then we look at their calendar and now I'm like, okay, let's break cognitive periodization down, we know you need to peak in June. We know you need to peak in December. What do we, let's start filling in the gaps either side. And when we think about periodization, you've got conditioning phase, you've got your transition phase, you've got your performance phase, and then you've got recovery. For me, that recovery phase is so important that no one is taking. And that recovery isn't a 1 week holiday in Bali, right? Because what will happen, and I don't know if you've seen this, is at the end of a period of high pressure, and usually in Australia it's December, we're in high pressure, and then boom, we go on holiday and we get sick. We take holiday, we get sick. That's called the letdown effect. And there's been a lot of research about that, where your immune system is suppressing everything because we're working to the end, and then suddenly it goes, oh, I'm taking a holiday. Whew. And that opens yourself up to all of these colds, flus. Saying that, those have probably been caught before, right? But your body is just suppressing everything. So that's not sustainable in that aspect. Yeah. Now, I then look at it and go, where are your recovery days? Or where are your recovery moments through the day? So or on a macro scale, you can look at a month, you can look at a year, we can even look at a week. And then we look at industry and sector. If you're a business owner, for example, and I've worked with a few, as a business owner, you're on all the time, or so you think. But, and this is where I come from, that was me. And then I was working with a business owner, and me and him were saying, I'm like, what are we doing here? Yeah. Now I work in 10-week sprints now, because that aligns to the school terms. And I find for me now, I am switched on. I know I've got 10 weeks of a sprint. And then at the end of that 10 weeks, I'm taking a week holiday or a couple of days off. If you're a business owner, we work in quarters. So you can work in a quarter. And I wouldn't say, if you're not used to taking a holiday, don't take a holiday, take a long weekend, right? Just to get into the groove. If you're corporate, it'd be the same sort of thing. But we need to start thinking about scheduling in recovery. On a micro scale, that recovery, I'll give you an example. In a day, that could be, I've got a difficult conversation I need to have with an employee at 10 a.m. So I'm going to prepare myself. I'm going to transition. I'm going to write down my script. I'm going to rehearse my script. I'm going to get ready physically and mentally to go through this, let's say, performance conversation. 10 till 10:30, I'm going to have my conversation, and that's my peak performance zone. And then between 10:30 and a quarter to 11, I'm going out for a break. Yep. I'm going for a walk. I'm going outside. I'm doing whatever it takes for me individually to recover. And everyone's got their own things that give them energy, right? And traditional productivity is all around time management. Cognitive periodization is about energy management. Right. And that's what will ensure that it's sustainable as we go through.
Yeah. I love the energy management piece, mate. We're going to explore that more. But what I'm hearing as you talk through this is that if we can't define peak performance, if we can't identify where there's peak performance within our calendar year, for instance, then we can't possibly practice or define what it means to simply sustain performance, because the two must go hand in hand. I relate so much to your approach to the seasonal aspect with which you go about what you do, but something you said there as well around recovery, to not go from 100 miles an hour to zero, and that to be the only sort of gears that you operate with, for the reasons that you just shared. And I always liken it to my time when I was swimming. When I would take 2 weeks off at the end of a long season or whatever it was, I'd maybe have a day or two where, I don't have to wake up, I'm going to sleep in and this and that. But then I would start running, or I'd start playing, like I'd go back to my parents for a few days, and my dad was playing five-a-side soccer, and I would just jump in and play that. I would still use my body, but I would take myself out of the familiar way in which I would use my body. So it was... It was my way of telling my body, like, we're not just switching off. We're not just completely disconnecting from the idea that you are still an athlete, but we are removing you from the stakes. We're removing you from the container and the pressure that you typically operate in. And then I would go back, and lo and behold, teammates would have done nothing for 2 weeks. and they're now going to get injured, and so they may have gotten sick during that 2 weeks off, and now they're going to get injured trying to get back into it. But we do this in the real world too. We do this in the corporate world too. But a lot of it's happening mentally as you're talking to, as opposed to maybe on that physical level.
Absolutely. And I see it. And guess what? Your body, this is really important, your body keeps the score. So when you are 65, you're retiring, I guarantee you're going to have some sort of health-related condition. And the research is backing this up, whether it's cardiovascular disease, autoimmune diseases, diabetes, some stress-related illness from the build-up of low-level stress for 40 years or so, your whole working career, because you've not been able to manage that effectively. And that's when you should be in your heyday, right? You've got grandkids, or you're sort of, hey, and you're exhausted. And I've done more research on this because I just have these conversations with some of my clients, and they're like, so why'd you mention cardiovascular disease, for example, or celiac or something? I'm like, well, that's what the statistics are saying around managing your stress levels. Oh, I've got that. I'm like, okay, well, let's have a conversation around it. So let's look at the longer term game here rather than the short term ism that work is at the moment. And I think, like you said, the breaks don't need to be long. What you're talking about there is that active recovery, isn't it? Yeah. So you're still turning your body over. We can still do that. I'm not saying, right, we need a 2-week window where we're shutting down completely. No way. But if you take back to that difficult conversations example, and that's a real example, is where, yes, we're going to switch off. We're going to go out for a walk. There's loads of research that says going out in nature, being around the trees is really good. The body, it's getting rid of all the cortisol, right, by actively moving and taking a walk, rather than going on a next Teams meeting and your brain is storing up all of the cortisol effectively. And what happens is, I'm going to geek you out now. What happens is when you've got a lot of build up of cortisol, you've got brain fog a lot of the time. You can't make effective decisions when you need to make effective decisions. And if I go to some of my Australian colleagues, if you've done a whole work day and then you're on Teams calls late at night and you're at 2 a.m, you're on the line with America, with head office, they want you to make a decision,
Yeah, good luck with that.
Good luck with that, yeah. And you're going to be zoned out. Right. There's a lot of research around, like, Microsoft's Human Factors Lab, for example, put EEG skull caps on people and monitored their brain wave activity and their stress levels. And they monitored 2 groups. One group, no breaks, all meetings all day, and you can see the stress level spike in the graph. And when it come to like the end of the 3rd meeting, stress levels are at their highest. And then you transition straight into the 4th meeting and you're zoned out because it's all of the build up. If you think about this, you've got unresolved actions from the previous meetings that are still on your mind. So you're not 100%. thinking about this. And then they contrast that to a group that took just a 5-minute break in between meetings. And it was chalk and cheese, honestly. The graphs, and you can Google this, the graphs were really high stress and down to nothing. But it's the transition. So now when you start the meeting 2, you're calm, composed, in control. Same with meeting 3 to meeting 4, you're the same sort of thing. So it's taking that 5-minute micro break in between meetings, because we know if you're back to back, you need a toilet, you get hungry, right? Your focus goes, you've got all these text messages and you're just not concentrating. So sorry, I know there's a lot. There's a lot. No,
it's great. And it's great. And this is where I really want to build upon all this now, mate, is that it's like so much of what you've shared so far, is it, You've said it already. I think I may have alluded to it as well. It's like, it's all stuff that we know. And I want to shift into how do we own it now? Like, because again, I have no doubt so much of what we've just explained a month or so ago when we turned the new year, people were just like, all right, this is the year. New Year's resolution. I'm taking 5 minutes between every single meeting or whatever it is. And that lasted a day or whatever it was. And so there's all this information that you've alluded to that we know. Help us understand how we can own it. And what I mean by own it is like, how do you make it matter? How do you make it matter enough where we're actually going to see people start to take some steps, start to protect certain behaviors that will allow them to say, hey, you know what? This isn't just stuff that I know now. It's stuff that I'm actually practicing as well.
Yeah. You need to really start with the human, right? Each individual person, and work out what their goals in life are. What's their self-worth? How do they achieve self-worth? And go in and even write, and I've done this activity a lot, write a letter to yourself that you open when you're 65, saying how you would like to be and do and have, and what energy that you would like. We need to start relating this stuff to the practicalities of life. You can't out-hack evolution. There's no way to do that, right? And we need to make it really personal for the individual. There are loads of tools out there that we can assimilate this. You mentioned, 5 minutes in between breaks. You can go onto your calendar, onto Microsoft or whatever you use, and you can schedule meetings instead of the default 30 to 25. And that gives you automatic. But then it's up to you to go, what matters most to me right now is I need to be present when I'm at home with my kids or my partner or my family. For me to be able to do that, I need a switch off time at 5:30. And then during the day, when I take 5-minute breaks in between meetings, it's a non-negotiable, because I need, my job requires me to make really good, high quality decisions. For me to do that, I need to have 25-minute meetings, and I need to then practice that. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything to anybody, because we know this, but nothing's ever going to change. I think when people go to the doctor for their annual checkup, in the military, it's like every year. As an athlete, it'd be the same. It'd be the same start of the year, right?
Start the season,
Get your bloods done. Let's do a battery of testing. If people were to do that every year, they would then be able to build up this portfolio of their own body. And it's not just this longevity thing. It's you right now. And if we're to do that, that would give people meaning and purpose to be able to make the change. And it's not easy. We are conditioned to take the easiest route. So to tell your colleagues, hey, I'm stopping work at 5:30 and not answering that email, that's really hard. But I know that as soon as I walk through the door at 6 p.m., I need to be present with my family. And if I'm not present, I'm not going to get the right results further down the track. So it is this compound interest effect when it comes to managing what you do today and the effect it has in the future.
You said it there, right there at the end. You said, like, if I'm not present now, I'm not going to get the results that I want. And we all have, to speak to the result, that's the peak performance that we're talking about. Like, we reference it so much. And that's why I love seeing this sort of, in my mind, this process really come through with what you're saying, Clint, is like, at the end of the day, when we get specific enough with what peak performance looks like and maybe some of the outcomes we want to see from it, we just keep reverse engineering from there. We just keep going further and further and back. And we just go, well, if that outcome is important to me, why? Why is it important to me? And I love where you took us there. Just like, it's not enough just to simply have a tangible outcome. That's what I'm hearing you say. Like, we have to be able to relate to it on a personal level for us to actually go to the extent of owning the particular piece of knowledge that we've acquired through a conversation like this, right?
And that's how habits stick.
Yeah.
We got something invested in there. And if we haven't got anything invested, it doesn't matter. We'll just do our own thing. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I want to be a career CEO or a CFO or C-suite or business owner. I work with people who are really high functioning, and they've got loads of different things on at the same time. And the brain wastes energy by switch tasking, right? So let's block in little peaks of time in which, okay, if I want to become a CFO, I need to make really great financial decisions. For me to do that, I need to review the information and make sure it's accurate. For me to do that, I need to block in time in my calendar to be able, the white space that is in no one's calendar, to sit there, to think through things, to be able to make good decisions, to whatever it is that your job is, for me to make that decision. But with these meetings and back-to-backs and even AI now, what AI is actually doing for us is just giving us more extraneous load, cognitive load, which is all the external factors coming through. So it's making us more efficient at triaging, but it's giving us more information. And we haven't got the ability to just go, do you know what, I'm taking half an hour and I'm looking out that window. And that's all I'm doing for half an hour for me to reset. More activity doesn't give you results. It's being really strategic with what you do and saying no to things, and that's really hard.
We're going to get to the no. Activity doesn't say that again. Activity doesn't produce results.
Yes.
Or it's not produce. What was it?
No, so what people get confused with is they think activity produces results.
Right.
Activity by itself just produces activity to be more busy and more busy, more busy.
Yeah.
But are you getting closer to your goal by being strategic and saying no to things that you should say no to and yes to the opportunities which are harder to take? And those things could be opposite. Let's say your strengths, for example, is, for me, it's not being analytical, right? So for me to do the analytical stuff, spreadsheets, all my accounting, getting real in the detail things, that takes a lot of time. So I need to book that time in. Now, it's really easy for AI and for LinkedIn and Instagram. I just fill my calendar up with all this stuff, more and more and more. And I'm not getting into any deep work. I'm just doing all this shallow work, which is just for what purpose?
Right. Just a handful of episodes ago, I had someone on. It's what I love about my show is that we don't necessarily settle on one idea and one concept. I love bringing them all to the table and allow people to kind of take what they're hearing and use it for their own good. And I think for me, again, a handful of episodes ago, we had someone on telling us, it's their ability to have said yes to so many things that's allowed them to figure out what it is they want to do. And now we're looking, it's a different conversation, but we're making the argument to say no. Now, what I think is really important here is that we consider the context around the no, the way you've led us to this point. It's not as simple as just saying like, know what to say yes to, know what to say no to, but have you done the work on the front end to know that a yes should be a yes and a no should in fact be a no? And I think where we were going there with just what you were saying around the activity doesn't produce the results. I mean, mate, I look back on my journey as a business owner, and if I didn't have something that was making me physically move in some way, shape, or form when I first started the business, I was like, well, this is a wasted hour. This isn't a good use of my time. And I'm very thankful that I had a wife who was actually able to sort of see the lack of sense in that at times. She's like, you don't always have to be networking. You don't always have to be talking to another human for you to be doing what you need to do for your business. And so I'm just curious, like, how have you personally evolved to where you are today to know what to say yes to and to know what to say no to?
Yeah, I used to be that yes person. And in my military career, I was a RAF, Royal Air Force physical training instructor. And one of the characteristics of that, it was this can-do attitude. I want to volunteer, your hand goes up. I want to volunteer. So at a young age, it bred into me. Volunteer, I'll do it. And as I've progressed through my career, I was that person when I transitioned out into civilian life, and that got me to a certain level. And this is where the knowledge work then kicks in to go, actually, now I'm leading people. I've got a business. I need to now work on the business, not in the business. And that's what you're describing there. It's working on the business rather than in the business. And on the business is doing all the things you need to grow, being strategic. How many people have got strategic plans that just sit on a shelf? So now it's bringing it back into the day to day to go, for me to achieve my goal at the end of the year, let's break it down. This is what I need to do more of and less of. I need to identify opportunities in which I need to say no. Do I need to go to that networking event? No. Have I got podcasts to produce? Yes. Have I got a book to write? Yes. What's more important here for this week? Because I'm taking a cognitive periodization lens to it. It's not my peak performance week. Now I'm going to work on the deep work of doing my book. And I know in this consulting space that I work in, January, February are very quiet. that gives me, I wrote this book, last year in these quiet periods, March, April, May, that's when it ramps up. And I need to do more of the networking side of it. And then it drops off again. And then it peaks up again and it drops off. It's knowing what phase that you're in to be able to say no to. And for a lot of people, it's knowing what your goal is. Are you taking the actions to get there? And what actions do you need to stop taking?
Yeah, and it's good stuff in the sense of you're helping folks here listening start to put the mirror up a little bit and just go, okay.
It's a hard one, right? Oh,
it's a
man.
hard mirror. It's a hard mirror, but that's why you listen to Growth Ready. To be honest, like we're trying to put that mirror up for everybody, but at the same time, I appreciate where you've taken us here to shift from this knowing to owning. And it's why I want you to really help us now. Like when you think about the work you're doing with clients today, when you think about the book, and we've not necessarily referenced it outright, but the Cognitive Athlete for our YouTube viewers, I'll put the copy of it there. And we're actually releasing this episode right in line with the US release of the book, which I'm really happy to partner with you on, mate, and do for
thanks.
you. And for us though, like I want folks now to sort of listen to this and go, okay, I know it. I'm owning my part in it now. Clint, help me understand how to protect this. Like, how are you going to help me protect? You talked about the seasonal calendar, the way we look at things strategically. How are you keeping that accountability, or maybe even coaching folks to behave with that accountability themselves to protect these things that truly matter most?
And that's where we come in as executive coaches. We set goals. We set targets at the end of every coaching session, hold people's hands to support them to achieve what they need to achieve. It's really easy just to go, new year, new you, let's go with it. But let's start building a plan. And that plan starts with, okay, what are you going to do in these next 2 weeks? You said you're going to say no. Let's identify now what opportunities, get your calendar out. Let's identify what opportunities that you can actually, let's delegate, go into that meeting to my 2IC. I don't need to do that. That's what we're talking about, taking these actions. And then looking at your jobs to do list. And if you're anything like me, it's massive. And I need to now go through that whole list and go, right, what's serving me? You've heard of the 80-20 rule, where 20% of your jobs, your task will give you 80% of the results. So we need to sort of put that lens over and get rid of all of the actions that are not, that are just there, right? To satisfy our need for movement and activity. And then we can keep people accountable through that. If we're not at the start, and I've also got a bit of a daily tracker too. And this is just a habit I've got into every single day, and I give it to all my clients. At the start of the day, you take 15 minutes at the start and book it in your calendar. No one can book that in. It's a busy period. I put in busy. I don't title that busy because I don't like the word busy. But I'll put it in there, and it'll be marked in terms of if anyone wants to book in my calendar. It's just busy. It says busy on there. You can't see it. That 15 minutes is for me to look at the day and to go, right, what actions do I need to take? Who do I need to speak to? How do I need to show up? What are some intentional moments through the day? Oh, Clint said that it would be good to start delegating some work. So where are some opportunities for me to delegate today? Oh, there is this meeting that's coming up at 2:00. I don't need to go. I need to ask my 2IC to go. Oh, I'm just going to ask them. No, I'm not. I need to build a plan for that. That's the work of leaders. So here's another, right here, I want you to attend this meeting. It's going to last this long. Here is the context behind it. This is where I can see you contributing really well. At the end of the meeting, let's catch up for 5 minutes and you can debrief me on that. That is closing the loop on everything, just on there. And then at the end of the day, you then evaluate the end of the day to go, have I achieved what I needed to achieve? What derailed me? Oh, I actually ended up going to that meeting because the CEO told me to go. Okay, what boundaries can I then put on there? That's that continuous growth every single day, doing that rather than just every 2 weeks. So it's transferring that ownership onto the individual to turn up intentional every single day, and rather than reactive. And to make that shift, man, it's a challenge, specifically in corporate, because we've got these unsaid expectations where you're on all year, you're available all the time. Man, our parents, as soon as they finish work, there's no email.
Right,
Their
right.
phone, it was the desk phone,
Right.
and now everything is blending into this work-life balance rubbish. As soon as you mention a work-life balance, you're fighting against one or the other, right? It's got to
Yeah.
be some sort of integration. So if you are working for a global organization over here and you have meetings at 10, 11 o'clock at night, okay, they're non-negotiable, by the way. How are you recovering? How are you taking that time back for you then to be intentional? Okay, let's look at my planner. Thursday, I'm on meetings until 2 in the morning. Right, on Friday, I'm going to start at 10. And I'm going to hold that boundary. And I'm setting the standard then. As a leader in this organization, I'm setting the standard. That's how it's going to be. Oh, but HR policy says this. I don't care. If they want the best out of me, and if they want me to make the best possible decisions, I need to put those boundaries in place. I want to be a CEO someday. For me to do that, I need to put boundaries in place. The CEOs that haven't and have done the work, they've worked their ass off to get to where they are, and they're overworking, a lot of them, and they're not building this pipeline, this succession pipeline for them to be able, to be a really great role model rather than just working harder.
Yeah, you're making the argument for energy management to be a standard within an
Correct.
organization, and like that. I mean, we can both say it, very easily said, very difficult to execute, but it starts, so much of what you're saying here as I start to bring us to a close. It's like, in my mind, it's like, okay, if energy management becomes a standard within your organization, what does every single person that touches the outcome, let's say, within this organization, which I might argue is everyone, what does everyone in this organization want to do with their energy? What would be ideal for them? Well, how could they possibly be of optimal use through their energy? Where do they see themselves being of most value if you were to consider them applying their full energy, or applying themselves in areas at times of the year, when we're trying to peak? That those are the ways I start to think, okay, that's what's going to change about our behaviors and the way we think within the organization when we set that standard of, okay, hey, turns out energy management is really important. I actually want us to show up to meetings in this type of headspace. I want us to actually apply ourselves to our work with this type of energy, etc. If a leader sets that tone, watch out. I mean, the entire organization is going to then say, how can I embody that? Right.
And who's having these conversations? Or anyone,
Right.
Is anybody that intentional as a leader to go, hey, this is how I want you to turn up? Oh, and I would say, no, absolutely not. Because we're just grinding through. We're not intentional because we're trying to catch up. When I look through people's calendars, where is lunch booked in? It isn't. And energy for me and for you is different to other people. I'm a high energy person. So when I come into meetings, I need to tone it down a little bit. For some people, it's just I need the individual headspace to think about things. So I need to be able to step back. But even in a meeting, I did this years ago. The first 2 minutes, I think Amazon do this really well. The first, they have to write all these memos before the meeting to call the meeting. And then they spend the first 10, 15 minutes reading the memo and to get into the right headspace to make a decision rather than just jumping into it. Now, one of my things I talk with leaders, this is it. I'm having this conversation. So how do you want people to turn up in meetings? Knowing everyone's different. And if I know my direct reports, for example, and we can talk circadian rhythms now too. If they are morning people, I'm an afternoon person, so 3 to 5 for me is ideal. I can shift, and I'll make sure that I have a meeting in the morning because I know that they're cognitively functioning at high level rather than the afternoon. That suits me. But if I want to have one-on-one conversations, I might book them in the afternoon. Or if I'm doing really that deep focus work, I'm going to book that in between 3 and 5. All the shallow work I'm going to do around my circadian rhythm. And we work in 90 to 120 minute ultradian rhythm blocks or focus too throughout the whole day. So it's identifying those for people and working with it in terms of that whole energy management piece behind it.
Yeah, it's all fascinating, and it forces anyone listening to this whether you're a leader within a large organization, you're somebody that just simply works within that large organization, whether it's a company, which me, myself, and I. The point is that energy management is something we can all get more honest about, all do a better job of looking in the mirror. And, I consider myself someone that periodically finds ways to just stop and say, you can do it better. You can do it better. There has to be a better way that you can be using your time, your energy, etc. right now. And if so much of what I'm hearing here, Clint, is if we start getting curious towards ourselves with energy management, it's so much easier to practice curiosity and open-mindedness towards how somebody else may or may not be using their energy well. To that example that you just gave there, it's like, if I am cognizant enough to pay attention to the energy someone else brings into the room, and I'm always meeting with them, let's say in the morning, and I never notice that they seem overly engaged, how might I just simply meet with that person and say, you know what, would it be better if we did this in the afternoon? Would you get more out of this if we did this? Oh my God, you have no idea. I just cannot do this kind of meeting in the morning, but you keep telling me that we need to meet in the morning. It's like, oh no, we don't have to. But we're not having these conversations. We're not having these conversations.
It goes back to the default network, doesn't it? Of, my boss has booked in a meeting, I'll just have to attend. But then that's saying no, but it's pushing back to go, hey, in the can-do attitude to go, oh, hey, I really want to meet with you. Are there any alternative times for us to meet? Given the fact that actually this morning I was up last night until 2 a.m. on a meeting with the US, Your boss doesn't know this. They don't know that because they've got so much going on in their own mind that they're focused on themselves. And going to your point there, if they're stressed out and they're not taking this whole cognitive periodization approach, no awareness at all. They're just trying to get through. So you can take that ownership to then go, I want to work my schedule now. And my schedule means this. So I'm going to ask some more questions and push back a little bit. And your boss, I guarantee you, they'll be like, oh, I never thought about that before. Yeah, absolutely. I can do that.
Yeah. It's awesome stuff. And just to kind of really just bring it all together here, to go back to what you initially said there in response to what it means to be growth ready, that, we're knowledge workers. We think we have an engine, but that engine is filled with energy, and we need to be disciplined about, are we asking ourselves, are we actually stopping often enough to say, am I running on low, and have I been running on low for weeks and I'm just ignoring it? Or are there, and if so, how can I get a bit more curious? How can I start to pinpoint strategically where in my life, in my year, in my months, where can I find times to start pinpointing what peak could look like and why it's important for me to peak at these times, so that I can then practice sustainability more effective between those moments as well. And obviously the notion of recovery, how can we start to implement recovery more? But at the same time, we're doing all of these things in regards to, as humans, what matters most to us? What is it that's so important that we can actually associate with all of this work, so that we consider it work that matters, so we actually go away and protect it? So, mate, honestly, amazing stuff. Love it. It's been long overdue having you on. I'm so glad that we've finally been able to do it. But at the same time, as I alluded to, the Cognitive Athlete is coming out here in the US. Mate, where can we learn more about you? Where can we learn more about the book? Please share everything that we need to know for our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. You can head to the website, which is www.thecognitiveathlete.com.au in Australia. I'm active on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place to get me. I've got weekly newsletter on a Wednesday. I've got a podcast as well that goes out on a Monday, and it's just short, sharp, 10 minutes max, talking about all of this stuff as well. Anyone can use those channels as well. The book will be available in the US, I think on the 27th of February via Amazon. So you can get that via Amazon as well. And again, you can just contact me direct, either on LinkedIn or anything like that.
Brilliant. Well, I definitely encourage everyone to go give him a follow on LinkedIn. I enjoy seeing your stuff on there, mate. And again, just really appreciate just the generosity of insights and really bringing this to our listeners today. I think it's valuable stuff, and I don't think it's ever too late for us to be working on it. So thanks, mate, and all the best with the book as well. I know it's been a grinding process up to this point, but it's here now, and just good luck with all of it.
Yeah, no, thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for tuning in to Growth Ready. If you liked what you heard and are feeling ready to grow, be sure to leave a 5-star rating, subscribe to the show, and share the episode with someone you know is ready to fuel their growth journey today. We love our community, so don't hesitate to reach out to us at podcast@growthready.com. And until next time, we are Growth Ready, and you will be too.